The moment I realized my lunchbox was missing, my chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with hunger. It was the kind of feeling you get when something small suddenly carries the weight of your entire life, when a simple mistake threatens to expose parts of you you keep carefully hidden. That lunchbox was never just food. It was memory, survival, and the quiet proof that I still had something to offer this world, even on days when everything else felt empty. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of small acts, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel The Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. I had started bringing homemade lunches to work after life forced me to change in ways I never planned. Years earlier, my marriage had ended not with shouting or betrayal, but with silence. My wife had passed away after a long illness, leaving behind an apartment that echoed too loudly and a kitchen that felt unbearably still. Cooking became the only place where I could breathe. Chopping vegetables, simmering sauces, and packing meals gave shape to my evenings. It felt like I was still caring for someone, even if that someone was just my future self trying to survive another workday. At the office, I was invisible in the way many people are. I did my work, met deadlines, avoided unnecessary attention, and went home. I had no interest in being noticed. The lunchbox, plain and scratched, was meant to stay under my desk, opened quietly during breaks. But one afternoon, when meetings ran long and stress filled the air, a coworker decided to be helpful in the careless way people sometimes are. Seeing my lunchbox left behind in the break room fridge, they assumed it belonged to someone else and handed it to our boss, who had skipped lunch and looked exhausted. Our boss was known for her strength and distance. She carried authority like armor, polished and unyielding.
Few people knew anything about her life beyond deadlines and expectations. When she tasted the food, something unexpected happened. The tension she carried softened, just slightly, as if a long-forgotten memory had brushed against her. The remark she made was said lightly, almost jokingly, but it lingered in the air longer than anyone expected. She expressed a wish for a partner who could cook with such care, such warmth. It wasn't flirtation. It was longing, pure and unguarded. By the time the lunchbox made its way back to me, the office felt different. Eyes followed me, curiosity replacing indifference. I felt exposed, like someone had read a page from my private journal out loud. Part of me wanted to shrink back, to stop bringing homemade food altogether. Another part, the tired but stubborn part, wondered why something so simple could move people so deeply. The days that followed were uncomfortable. Whispers traveled faster than emails. People smiled at me in the hallway. A few coworkers asked about recipes, about where I learned to cook like that. I answered politely but briefly, afraid that if I said too much, I might unravel. What none of them knew was that every meal was a quiet conversation with grief, a way of honoring a love that still lived inside me. What surprised me most was the change in our boss. She began to notice things she never had before. She asked how projects were going, remembered small details, and even joined the team in the break room once in a while. There was a softness there now, not weakness, but humanity. I later learned, through fragments and office rumors, that her life outside work was painfully empty. Long hours had replaced companionship. Success had crowded out warmth. The food had touched something she had buried under years of responsibility. Weeks passed, and the office slowly transformed. People shared more, laughed more, stayed a little longer during breaks. It was as if one unintended act had reminded everyone that we were more than job titles. For me, the biggest struggle was internal. I battled the fear of being seen against the deep desire to matter. Each morning, as I packed my lunch, I felt my wife's presence in the routine, steady and encouraging. I realized that hiding my care had never protected me from pain. It had only kept me from connection. One evening, after a particularly hard day, I stayed late to finish a report. The office was quiet, lights dimmed, the city humming outside. Our boss was still there, sitting alone, staring at her screen without really seeing it. In that silence, something shifted. There was no dramatic confession, no sudden romance. Just two people, both tired, both carrying invisible losses, sharing a moment of understanding that required no words. The walls between us felt thinner, more human. From that point on, life didn't magically become perfect. Grief didn't disappear. Loneliness didn't vanish overnight. But something important had changed. I stopped seeing my care as something to hide. She stopped seeing strength as something that required isolation. We both learned that nourishment isn't only about food. It's about attention, presence, and the courage to let others see your tenderness. Months later, the office potlucks became a regular thing. People brought dishes from their homes, stories from their lives. The workplace felt warmer, kinder. And every time someone took a bite and smiled, I felt a quiet sense of purpose. Not because I wanted praise, but because I understood that love, once given, doesn't end. It transforms. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that small acts can carry enormous healing, please take a moment to like, share, and comment. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who might be hurting in silence. Before you go, I have one special request. In the comments, write the line "Kindness begins with small acts" so we know you were here and felt this. Sometimes, the simplest gestures are the ones that change everything.